Welcome back, everyone. Today we will be reading Book 7, so let's get into it. Book 7. What happened to Odysseus in the palace of Alcinoös? While Odysseus was praying to his guardian goddess, the girl drove her mules into the city at a brisk trot and drew up at her father's door. There her brothers met her, and fine young fellows they were. They soon unhitched the mules and carried in the clothes. She went up to her own room and found the waiting woman lighting the fire. This was the nurse of her childish days, Eurymedusa, who had been captured long ago after a raid on Aperia. And she had been chosen then out of the spoil as a special prize for the king whom the people loved to honor and obey. Soon the fire was lit and the supper coming. At the same moment Odysseus set out for the city. A thick mist hid him from sight, for Athena did not wish anyone to meet him and provoke him, or ask him who he was. But as he was about to enter the city, Athena met him herself, in the shape of a young girl carrying a pitcher. Odysseus said to her, "My dear child, could you show me the way to the mansion of King Alcinoös? I am a stranger from foreign parts, and I have come a long way, so I know not a soul in this country." Athena said, "Indeed I will, father, and welcome. My own father lives close by, but just follow me quietly, and don't look at anyone or ask any questions. People here simply will not stand strangers. They are not glad to see anyone who comes from abroad. Ships are what they believe in, fast cutters that travel about the open sea. This is the earth shaker's gift to them. Their ships fly quick as a bird, quick as a thought." So Athena prattled on as she led the way briskly. Not a man of them noticed Odysseus as he passed through the people along the street. For Athena had him in her care, and she covered him in a thick mist by her divine power. But Odysseus could see the wonderful sight, the harbors and the fine-run ships, the people's meeting places, the long, high walls with their palisade. When they reached the palace, Athena said, "There is the mansion you asked for, sir. You will find the royal princes feasting away at their feast. Go in, and don't be frightened. Dogged does it every day, though you come from far away. Look for my lady first in the hall. They call her Arete, and she has the same parents as the king. You see, there was first Nausithous, the son of Poseidon, Earthshaker, and the lovely Paraboia, youngest daughter of Eurymedon king of the furious giants. Eurymedon destroyed his own wild people, and he was destroyed with them. But Poseidon lay with Paraboia, and their son was Nausithous, king of the Phaeacians. Nausithous had two sons, Rhexenor and Alcinoös. Rhexenor was killed in his own hall by Apollo with a silver bolt, while he was a young bridegroom and had no son as yet. But he left an only daughter, Arete, and Alcinoös married her. Alcinoös honored her as no woman in the world is honored by her husband. So she is honored still by her husband and children, and the people think her divine, and cheer her loudly whenever she passes through the city. Aye, indeed, she has plenty of good sense. If her friends quarrel, she makes it up, even for men. If she likes you, there's good hope you may come safe to your tall house in your native land, and see to your own friends at last." And with these words away went Athena over the barren sea, and left lovely Scheria behind. To Marathon she passed, and Athens with its broad streets, and entered the strong house of Erechtheus. But Odysseus approached the great mansion. Again and again he stood still in wonder before he set foot on the brazen threshold. For a brightness as of sun or moon filled the whole place. Round the courtyard, walls of bronze ran this way and that way, from the threshold to the inner end, and upon them was a coping of blue enamel. Golden doors and silver doorposts stood on a threshold of bronze, with silver lintel and golden crow latch. Golden and silver dogs were on either side, which Hephaestus had made by his clever brain to guard the mansion of proud Alcinoös. They were immortal, and never grew old as the days went by. Within the hall were seats fixed along the wall on both sides, from the threshold right to the inner end, and spread over these were soft coverings of fine spun stuff, which the women had made. There the leaders of the Phaeacians used to sit, eating and drinking, for they had plenty which never failed. Golden boys stood on pedestals of masonry, and held blazing torches in their hands, which gave light by night in the hall of the feasting, for the feasting. There were 50 serf women about the place, some grinding the apple yellow grain on the millstone, some weaving their webs or twisting their yarn as they sat, all aflutter like aspen leaves on a tall tree. And there was fine close woven cloth, with olive oil dripping from it. As much as the Phaeacians surpassed other men in skill to drive a swift ship over the deep, so much their women surpass in making of cloth. For Athena has granted them excellent knowledge of fine work and good intelligence. Outside, the courtyard was a great orchard near the gates, 4 acres. A fence ran round it in both directions. There were tall trees in full luxuriance, pears and pomegranates and apple trees with glorious fruit, sweet figs and olives. Their fruit never fails to or comes to an end all the year round. But the same west wind ever blowing buds one crop and ripens another. Pear after pear grows mellow, apple after apple, fig after fig, vintage after vintage. There was a flourishing vineyard full of fruit. One part of it was a level plot for warming and drying the grapes in the sun. In another part, grapes were being gathered. In another, men were treading. In front were unripe grapes, just shedding the bloom. Others were beginning to color. Beyond the last row of vines were neat beds of all kinds of garden stuff, ever fresh and green. There were 2 springs of water. One was led in rills all over the garden. The other ran opposite under the threshold of the courtyard, and came up near the high house. From this the townspeople used to draw their water. Such were the gods' glorious gifts in the palace of Alcinoös. There Odysseus stood gazing, after all his tribulations. When he had taken it in, he crossed the threshold with brisk steps and entered the hall. He found the lords and rulers of the Phaeacians dropping the libation out of their cups in honor of Hermes Argiphantes, whom they used to honor the last of all before they went to rest. Odysseus passed through the hall, hidden in the mist which Athena spread about him. When he came up to Arete and King Alcinoös, he threw his arms about the knees of Arete, and in a moment the mist faded away. All fell silent throughout the hall when they saw him, and they stared in surprise. while Odysseus put his petition to the queen. Arete, daughter of divine Rhexenor, I come in my distress, a suppliant to your husband and to your knees. Yes, and to these who sit at meat. May the gods grant them to be happy while they live, and may each have children to inherit his wealth and the honorable place which the people has given him. Now I beseech you to send me home to my native land without delay, for I have long suffered tribulation far from my friends. This said, he sat down upon the hearth in the ashes beside the fire, and silence fell upon all. At last a noble old man spoke. Alcinoös, one of the leaders of the nation, a notable speaker, and one who knew well the traditions of ancient days. In kindness and friendship he spoke. Alcinoös, it is not right and proper that a stranger should sit on the ground amid the ashes of the hearth. But we must all wait for you to speak first. Come now, sir, take him by the hand and raise him up, and lead him to a seat of honor. Bid the ushers mix wine, and let us pour our drops to thundering Zeus, who is always beside a suppliant, to win him respect, and let the housewife give the stranger food. There they were, face to face, the king and his majesty, and the castaway with only his knowledge of man and his ready wit. Alcinoös held out his hand to Odysseus, and led him from the hearth to a high seat, where his own son was sitting, near himself, for he loved the courteous Laodamas best of all his sons. He moved his son out of that seat, and placed Odysseus there. A servant brought the hand wash, and poured it from a golden jug over a silver basin to rinse his hands. Then he set a table beside him. A dignified housewife brought bread and laid the table with all sorts of food and plenty of it. Then the strong man ate and drank after all his troubles. Meanwhile the king called to an usher. Pontonous, mix a bowl and serve all who are in the hall, and we will pour our drops to thundering Zeus, who is always beside a suppliant, to win him respect. So Pontonous mixed the honey-hearted wine, and went round the company pouring the first drops into their cups, which they then poured out on the ground. After this they drank what they wanted, and Alcinoös addressed them. Listen to me, my lords and princes of the nation, and let me tell you what I think. You have finished your feasting. Now go home and rest, and early in the morning we will call the older men to a full meeting, and entertain the visitor in my hall. We will offer a handsome sacrifice to the gods, and then we will consider his send-off. We must escort him home without trouble or annoyance, and bring him to his native land in contentment without delay, even though it may be far off. On the way we must see to it that he meets no hurt or misfortune until he sets foot in his own country. But after that he will have to suffer whatever his lot may be. Whatever the stern spinners spun off their thread for him on the day when his mother brought him forth. Or, if he is one of the immortals come down from heaven, then we may take it that this is something new in the gods dealing with us. For in time past they have always been in the way of showing themselves to us face to face when we perform our solemn sacrifices, dining with us and sitting along with us in the same place. And even if some solitary wayfarer meets them, they make no concealment, since we are very near akin to them, like the Cyclopeans and the savage tribes of giants. Odysseus answered readily, You need not be anxious about that, Alcinoös. I am not at all like the immortals who rule the broad heavens, either in stature or feature. but I am just a mortal man. Those men whom you know most ridden with affliction would be most like myself. Ay, indeed, I could tell you of more sorrows than theirs, which I have borne from first to last by the will of God. Well now, let me dine, in spite of my troubles, for there is nothing in the world more shameless than this cursed belly. Forces a man to remember it in spite of dire distress and sorrow of heart, such as the sorrow which is in my heart. Yet the belly commands me to eat and drink, and makes me forget all that I have suffered, and bids me fill it up. Do your best, I pray you, early tomorrow, that an unhappy man may return to his own country after so much suffering. Let me once set eyes on my lands and my men and my great house, and then let me die. Excellent, they all said. Couldn't be better put. We must see our visitor safely home. Then they poured out their last drops, and when they had drunk all they wanted, they went home to bed. Now Odysseus was left in the dining hall, and beside him sat Arete and King Alcinoös. The attendants cleared away the trappings of the feast. Then Arete asked him a question, for she had recognized the fine tunic and the wrapper, which he wore as soon as she saw them. She had made them herself with her women, and now she came to the point at once. Now, my guest, I will ask the first question myself. Who are you, and where did you come from? Who gave you these clothes? Didn't you say you had been drifting about on the sea? Odysseus answered readily. A hard task, my queen, to tell the whole story of my troubles, since the gods who dwell in heaven have given me many. But I can answer this question easily enough. There is an island called Algigia, lying far away in the sea. There lives the daughter of Atlas, the scheming witch Calypso with her lovely hair, a terrible being. No one ever visits her, neither god nor mortal man, but I was her guest, unhappily, as fortune would have it. All alone, for Zeus had struck my ship with a fiery thunderbolt, and smashed it to pieces on the dark sea. Then all my companions were drowned, but I straddled across the ship's keel, and tossed about for 9 days. On the 10th black night, the gods brought me to Algigia, where beautiful Calypso lives, and a terrible creature she is. She rescued me, and treated me kindly, loved me, and fed me, and promised to make me immortal, and never to grow old all my days. But she could not win my heart. There I remained 7 long years on end, and the imperishable clothes which Calypso gave me were always wet with my tears. But when the 8th year rolled round, she told me to go in a hurry, some message from Zeus, or perhaps she had changed her mind. She sent me off on a raft, which I put together, and gave me all sorts of things, bread and delicious mead and imperishable clothes, which she had woven, and sent behind me a warm, soft wind. 17 days I sailed over the deep. On the 18th appeared the shadowy hills of your land, and glad my heart was to see it. But bad luck was still to come from Poseidon Earthshaker. He drove the winds against me, and barred my course, and stirred up the infinite sea, so that the waves would not let me go on. And there I sat despairing on my raft. Then the tempest broke it to pieces, and I went swimming across yonder gulf, until wind and water drove me near to your coast. If I had tried to get ashore there, the waves would have crushed me against the face of the cliff, and dashed me upon the rocks, in a most unpleasant place. But I sheered off, and went on swimming until I reached a river, which seemed to me a good place to land, with some shelter from the wind and no jagged rocks. I was thrown up, gasping for breath, and night came on. Then I got away from the swollen river and sank down in the bushes, where I scraped up the leaves over me, quite worn out, and God let me fall into a deep sleep. So there under the leaves I slept all night long, and through the dawn past midday. Sunset hour was coming when sleep left me. Then I noticed your daughter's maids playing about on the beach, and herself with them, like some goddess come down from heaven. I made my prayer to her. She had no lack of good sense, indeed. She had such as you would not expect a young person to show. The young are thoughtless, one and all. She gave me bread enough and sparkling wine and a bath in the river, and she gave me these clothes. There is the true story of an unhappy man. Alcinoös answered, I will say this, sir. My girl did not show good sense at all that she did not bring you home with the waiting maids. You appealed to her first, after all. Odysseus had his answer ready. My lord, do not blame your girl for that, I pray you. It was not her fault. She did tell me to follow with the maids, but I would not. I was afraid and bashful, too, in case you might be offended to see me there. We men that walk the earth are a touchy generation. Alcinoös answered, Sir, I am not the kind of man to be put out for nothing. It is better to have everything done fairly and squarely. I could wish, if only ye would grant it, Father Zeus and Athena and Apollo, I could wish that you, just as you are, with such sympathy between us, would agree to take my daughter and become my son, and stay here. I would give you house and estate, if you would stay willingly, for against your will no one of our nation will keep you. Father Zeus forbid. Do not be anxious. You shall have an escort, and I will fix the time for tomorrow. Then you shall just sleep soundly while they row you over the calm sea, until you reach your native land and your home, or anywhere you like, even if it be farther off than Euboria, which our people say is the most distant place there is, those who saw it when they took golden-head Rhodamathus to visit Tityos, the son of Gaia. They went there, let me tell you, and did the journey without trouble, and came all the way back on the same day. You shall see and know for yourself that my ships and my lads are the best in the world to splash up the brine with their blades. Odysseus was glad indeed to hear this, and he prayed aloud and said, Father Zeus, may Alcinoös do all that he has promised. Then his fame would be spread over the whole earth, never to be extinguished, and I should come home to my native land. While they conversed in this manner, Queen Arete directed her maids to prepare a bed under the open gallery, to lay upon it fine purple blankets with coverlets, and to provide fleecy wraps for clothing. The maids went out of the hall, torch in hand, and when they had done their task and the bedstead was ready furnished, they came to Odysseus and invited him to go. Come now, sir, your bed is made. He was quite ready, and glad at the thought of rest. And so Odysseus slept after all his troubles, but Alcinoös lay down in a recess of the lofty hall, where his lady prepared their bed and lay down by his side. That's it for Book 7. We will see you guys next week with Book 8.